Okay, let's begin. I want to welcome you to the NNU School of Business Annual Fall Enrichment Series. This enrichment series was created, as the name indicates, to enrich our community by encouraging discussions on relevant topics to improve our community. I think most would agree Treasure Valley is a wonderful place to live, to work, and raise a family. But like every community, we have needs to address, and these panelists represent the vital nonprofit organizations that support our community and provide the necessary service to keep our community growing strong. Let me begin by introducing our panelists and their respective organizations. First of all, I'll start on the side. Debbie Wheeler from Hands of Hope. We also have Reverend Bill Roscoe from the Boise Rescue Mission, as well as Blossom Johnson from J.A. Catherine Albertson Foundation, and Nora Carpenter from the Treasure Valley United Way, and also Brad Beckwith from the Nampa Boys and Girls Club. Thank you. I'm Dr. Kanya Weber, Interim Dean and Department Chair for the School of Business, who will serve as the moderator. I have asked each panelist to briefly introduce their organization and then proceed to discuss current challenges in managing nonprofit organizations. Once each panelist has had the opportunity to speak, then I will open it up for questions from the audience. I'll walk around there and give you the mics to ask the questions. So please hold your questions till the end. So since we're going to start on this side, I'm going to go ahead and ask Debbie Wheeler to go ahead and begin. I think that should be on.
Okay, thank you. I'm the Executive Director of Hands of Hope Northwest. Our mission is to collect medical equipment and supplies that hospitals and individuals don't need anymore, and then to get it to the people who do need it. And the people that we send it to could be overseas, they could be in Africa, Philippines. We've shipped to 58 different countries around the world, and then also we help people locally. So if you needed to borrow a wheelchair or walker for up to 6 months, there's no need to go out and buy all of that equipment. You can come and you can borrow it from Hands of Hope. And we just do that on a donation basis. We have people who are getting out of the hospital or a care center and are told, okay, before you go home, you need to get together a hospital bed and a wheelchair and a walker and a bath chair and a grabber, and they're just overwhelmed. I don't have any money. I've just spent $30,000 in the hospital, and how am I going to buy all these things that I need? So they can come, they can borrow those things from us, and then they just return them when they're finished. So it's a huge help to the community. The value of the community last year was about $600,000 in rental value. At any one time, we have about 800 pieces loaned out to the community. Every year, we give away about $3 million in international shipments. You wouldn't believe the amount of things that, like I say, people buy medical equipment, they only need it a short period of time. Their parent died or whatever. What am I going to do with this wheelchair? Well, we get wheelchairs dropped off on our doorstep almost daily, and so then we can get them to the people who need them. I've been asked to tell you some of the challenges of nonprofit management, and as a student, I would encourage you to take as many classes as you can in different pursuits, because as a very small nonprofit, I wear very many hats. This last month I wrote a grant application, so there's writing. I have to work with the budgets, so there's math. I had to be insurance expert when our insurance policy came due and figure out did we have enough coverage and what's the value of our building and all that. I also I'm in charge of all the employees, and so I'm about ready to do employee evaluations, so I'm the human resource department. And let's see, what else did I do this last month? Oh, I put on an event to raise funds. And we had that Saturday night, and we just started an endowment fund, so I had to learn all about what an endowment fund means and how, who's going to invest that money for us and what was the return on the investment. And so there's just so many things that as a small nonprofit I do. I gave a radio interview, I gave a television interview on Channel 7. I attended nonprofit educational conferences in Boise so I could keep learning about the nonprofit world and make contacts with other nonprofit organizations. I went to a ribbon cutting for the community clinic where we donated a lot of the equipment for them. And I have to go to board meetings, prepare reports for the boards, and meet with board members and encourage them in what they're doing. Meet with the volunteers. We have over 200 volunteers, and whenever they come, I try to get out and say hello to them, say thank you for coming, and just connect with the volunteers so that they want to keep coming back, and because we couldn't do it without our volunteers on the budget that we have. So I think that kind of shows you what it's like for nonprofit management.
And I'm glad that you do those things, and we appreciate the support we've had from you. And as I thought about saying that, one of the wonderful things about this valley is the collaboration that exists between the nonprofit organizations. We're all sort of kind of competing for dollars, but at the same time, I've never seen the kind of collaboration and cooperation that I see in this valley between the nonprofit agencies. So I'm Bill Roscoe from the Boise Rescue Mission. Our mission is to serve the community, particularly homeless, hungry, needy people, and to share the Word of God with those people. We're a Christian organization, and at the same time try to meet the tangible needs that those people have and what they bring through our door every day. We were founded in 1958 in Boise with the old mission, which was where the Grove Hotel is today. And when the bulldozers came, they moved a block over onto Main Street. And finally, in 1971, moved on to 5th and Front Street, which many of you who are locals would recognize as the rescue mission. We've grown from that to 4 rescue mission facilities. We have 2 in Boise, 2 in Nampa. So we have the River of Life mission, which is 34,000 square foot men's mission and community dining room over on River and 13th Street. And we have the City Life Home for Women and Children, which was established in 2001. And that's on 14th and Jefferson, and that's about 15,000 square feet in the main building. And across the street, there's another 3,500 square feet of space for homeless services, for shelter. So we have 98 beds there. We have over 200 beds at the River Street Mission, just for emergency services. And then in Nampa, we have the Lighthouse Rescue Mission over on Caldwell Boulevard that some of you probably saw coming and going down the boulevard. It was the only lighthouse in central Idaho, but a couple of weeks ago the bulldozers came there, and it's gone now too. And we moved over to 16th Avenue, what was formerly the First Assembly of God Church, and then became the original Gangsters Academy. So we felt real comfortable moving in after the gangsters, and a lot of mutual friends. And we have about 15,000 square feet there, and just over 100 beds for emergency services. And then at the same time as we were buying and remodeling that property on 16th Avenue, we had the opportunity to buy the former Valley Crisis Center off of Midland over on Corporate Lane in Nampa. And we did buy that, and so we established our first women and children shelter ministry here in the city of Nampa. And we have 60 beds in that facility. We also have a warehouse and distribution center in Boise, about 20,000 square feet over on 24th Avenue. And we have 12 apartments in Nampa that are for transitional living, primarily for men. And it's at the same site as the old Lighthouse Mission on the Caldwell Boulevard location. And we still own that frontage, the whole acre that the rescue mission sat on. And we have 7 apartments in Boise for women and children in transition. And that's across the street from City Light in a 2-story building there. A lot of the same things go on with all of us, I'm sure. I don't think there's a lot of difference, whether you're big or small. I remember when I first started to see our mission here grow, and we hired staff and we brought in some really wonderful, competent people, I started thinking about, well, I'll get on my motorcycle and I'll take off for a couple of weeks and do this and that. But it isn't much different, no matter what size you are in the nonprofit world. We all wear a lot of hats, and the same kind of things going on at the Rescue Mission are going on at Hands of Hope and going on at other nonprofits, and we have the same kind of responsibilities. I think the challenges that we face particularly is primarily in finding staff who are really ready to become staff at the Rescue Mission. We don't have a Rescue Mission college, and social work degrees are good, and I encourage people interested in serving people to get into the social work department. But at the same time, it's more or less a unique kind of niche when you have a gospel mission. Because while we use and practice a lot of the same things that you would see at any shelter anywhere, our staff all have to be Christians. This is a requirement for employment with us, is that our staff members are Christians. So we have to find that unique person that is a Christian and wants to work at a nonprofit agency. And I always warn my employees when I interview them, when I get to see them before they're hired, I warn them that we pay weekly, very weekly. And so you've got to find that unique, bright, talented, gifted, motivated person who's a Christian and wants to work for less than market wage sometime. And it's a real challenge to find staff and to retain staff. And of course you want to train your staff and send them to conferences and things that they can grow and develop their skills in. So that takes money. And money is the next thing, really, that presents a challenge all the time. We don't take any government funding. That's been a policy of the rescue mission since they started in 1958. And we still don't, and we probably never will, take any government funds of any kind. And that cuts off a lot of resources that we could have access to. But at the same time, it keeps us focused on who's really in charge. I'm the president and CEO, but I work for Jesus. And I trust that Jesus is going to meet the needs of the rescue mission every day. And there again, if you're going to be a staff member with us, you have to believe that too, because your paycheck depends on it, you see. So fundraising is always a challenge, and finding donors and then maintaining a relationship with donors and helping those donors to develop into your own ambassadors or evangelists in the community is another great challenge. But God is good, and this is the most generous community on the face of the earth. And I say that with all sincerity. I've been all over the country, and I've been in this work for almost 24 years. I've never seen a community as generous as this community is. When we have a need, and I'm sure others would say the same thing, that when we have a need and we present that need to the community, people come from everywhere to help us to establish that. And so we have programs for children, a whole summer-long program. We've got a college experience program for children. We have a homework club for all the kids staying in our shelters. We have a veterans transitional living program where veterans can spend 3 to 6 months living in transition with us and have their needs met and connected to other agencies, particularly Veterans Administration and agencies that serve vets. We've got job search programs. We've got full academic centers at all 4 of our rescue missions so that everyone in that building has access to the teacher and to a computer lab, and whatever their academic needs are, they can start to find help for that. And of course, the 1,000 meals a day and 350, 400 beds a night filled with homeless people. So it's quite an expansive ministry, and it's not because I'm the CEO, believe me. It's because God loves homeless people more than I ever could. And as long as we're trying our best to serve those people and share the good news, I think God's going to see us through.
I'm Blossom Johnson. I'm a program officer with the J.A. and Catherine Albertson Foundation. And how many of you have heard of the Albertson grocery store? Raise your hand. Okay, so that's not us. So, that is where we started, but we have no affiliation with the grocery stores. What I get to do is I have the privilege of working for the family of the Albertson legacy. And so it's a private family foundation. In the last 15, 16 years, we've really been focused on education. Our vision is limitless learning for all Idahoans. And we do that in a whole bunch of different ways. So let me just give you a quick rundown of how we operate. We really operate, I think, probably a lot differently than most of the others here, because we really do, by tax code, we are a nonprofit, but we operate as a business, and we give away $20 to $30 million a year. It is hard to give that much money away, and for very good reasons that I hope we'll uncover in this panel. And we have a very small staff. So, but in our staff, we have people who, we have an IT person, we have admin people, we have communications people, we have program officers, we have an executive director, we have a president, we have a CEO, all different varieties of skill sets. So there is a place for every skill set there is in this room, and then some. So if you're looking at nonprofit, yay, thank you, do it, because we need the best of the best working in the nonprofit sector. And a lot of business acumen is needed in the nonprofit sector. So whatever your toolkit is, whatever your passion is, you can find a place in the nonprofit sector. And I would challenge you to try as many nonprofits on as possible. Go and volunteer at a nonprofit so that you can Just see it. Just see it up front and personal to see what it is that you really want to do. I get to work with the great-granddaughter of Joe and Catherine Albertson. Jamie is in her mid-30s, and she, to me, is a rock star. She is somebody who is very, very passionate about this state. She and her family love Idaho. They only give in Idaho. They love Idaho, and they want Idaho to thrive. And in the last 15 to 16 years, they felt very disappointed in the way that they have given their money, because very few of the things they've given to have actually resulted in moving the needle for increasing student achievement in Idaho. So that's really kind of what we're taking a look at right now. We're kind of pausing, and we're taking a look at what it is that the family really wants to do going into the future. Is it education? Or is it maybe quality of life? Or outdoor recreation? Or, you know, a host of other things. So we're in a transition period right now, and we'll see where the family really wants to go. But it's an exciting time to be in Idaho. We've got lots of challenges in Idaho, and we have amazing people, gritty problem solvers that really, if given something to solve, they will find a way, whether it's with baling twine and duct tape or a computer. So we really have the essence of what's great in any state right here, and we really want to accelerate the good stuff. We've got some major initiatives right now. A couple of them are with NNU. One is the Docheo Center and the Khan Academy Idaho Pilot. We're very proud of the team here at NNU that is working on that. They have some young people that are absolutely amazing, and they have more mature people like me who help provide guidance and oversight. And I'm telling you, it is a world-class project coming out of this university that everybody can be proud of. We also have a PTEC initiative that is trying to get students in 9th through 12th grade some kind of a career technical certificate in advanced manufacturing, healthcare, or IT, so that by the time they're done with their 12th year, maybe into their 13th and 14th, they have an AA and some kind of an industry certification. So lots of really cool stuff going on in our state, lots of innovative stuff, and thank goodness for people, you know, across the table here who are serving the needs of both those that have resources and those that don't have resources. So just one little thing about me, and I have a personal mission statement, and it is, with God's help, I will improve the well-being of children and youth.
I love hanging out with Blossom. Thank you for that tee-up. I am Nora Carpenter. I am with United Way of Treasure Valley. And United Way's role is to focus on human beings and empower their potential by changing the odds for folks who are struggling, for folks who perhaps are living at the lower end of the economic scale. We like to talk about life as a cliff, and we don't want folks at the bottom of the cliff. That's not a great place to hang out. We want folks way back from the edge of the cliff. And so United Way works by empowering three things that every one of you and all of the folks in our community have. It's our job to light these within you: your time, your talent, and your treasure. And as the three panelists in front have said, you have a humongous opportunity to bring all of those to bear, to change some little corner of the world, whether it's Nampa, Idaho, or Nepal. Wherever you go, you have an opportunity to leave a remarkable legacy, and I hope that you will do that. So I'm going to wear two hats here for just a moment, because while I am with United Way of Treasure Valley, and we, as I said, we're focused very much on changing the odds, really by empowering education potential, health, and financial independence of individuals, and most specifically how those three things come together like a three-legged stool. We are successful in our lives when we're well educated, when we have our health, and when we are financially stable and able to have assets like a home or an apartment, transportation to get us to and from our employment or to education. All those things wrap together, and if one of those legs of the stool kicks out, life gets complicated really quickly. But I'm also going to wear a second hat today, and that is I have the great pleasure of being the chairman of the board of directors for the Idaho Nonprofit Center, which is if you imagine that all of the nonprofits in the state of Idaho had a trade association, it would be the Idaho Nonprofit Center. So here's your pop quiz. I know your professors told you there'd be one. How many nonprofits are there in the state of Idaho? Come on, a number. 5? 50? Come on. Oh, seriously, you're not this shy.
200.
200.
1,000.
1,000.
4,000.
4,000.
4,800.
4,800.
11,000.
Not quite.
Way to end.
7,000 not-for-profit organizations in the state of Idaho, and that does not count churches. That is organizations that hold the tax status of a 501c3, a charity, where if you made a contribution to that organization, you could deduct it off your taxes if you were filing a longer form of taxes. So here's your second question. How many employees do those 7,000 nonprofits have? How many of us are employed in the nonprofit sector, just in Idaho? It's more than 10. I'll make it easy, 50,000. 50,000. If the sector, if all the nonprofits, the 501c3s in the state of Idaho, were a sector like mining or agriculture or manufacturing, we would be the third largest industry. Idaho could not run. People in Idaho could not thrive if it were not for the nonprofit industry. Organizations like Boys and Girls Club, organizations like trade associations, organizations like Hands of Hope and the Rescue Mission fill a humongous gap and provide services that are critically needed by people in our communities every single day. So if you are considering a career in the nonprofit industry, you are joining not just a really cool thing to do, you are joining a colossal movement that fundamentally has the opportunity to change the game for individuals. And I give you a little homework assignment since we're in a school. I have a microphone, I can do that, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay, so here's your homework assignment. When you leave today, as you either walk or drive or bike through an intersection, a traffic intersection, I invite you to pause when you get to that intersection and look at the other either people or vehicles at that intersection. Because there is a 100% chance that somebody at that intersection is receiving some services from a nonprofit organization in the state of Idaho. 100% chance. And you can be one of those people who's helping to provide those services. So what skills? Debbie and Bill did a great job of talking. You gotta think like a business. We might be called non-profit, but that does not mean that the idea of generating revenue is a bad thing. It's a critical thing. But you have to be skilled at managing. You have to have all the business acumen that a Micron Technology or Crookham Seed Company would expect if you were being hired there. I'll add a little different layer on one of the challenges I think that the not-for-profit sector faces right now, and I'm going to go a completely different direction here. And it's called the overhead myth. And if you like to Google stuff, just simply Google the overhead myth. Nonprofits are really, really challenged right now by a really old legacy donor philosophy that donors don't want to fund overhead. Lights, power, carpet, chairs, people. Holy moly, how would we do our work if we didn't have lights, power, chairs, carpet, and people? So I challenge you to Google the overhead myth and really understand how fundamentally not-for-profit organizations have to function like a business and how really, really top-drawer nonprofits function because they are well managed. They hire the very best, most skilled people, and they're able to keep them by offering things like benefits, little things, insurance, that kind of stuff.
First off, I'll promise that I'm not going to give you any more homework. But I was hoping I would go before Nora because she's such a great speaker. My name is Brad Beckwith. I'm the executive director for the Boys and Girls Club of Nampa. The mission of the Boys and Girls Club has one common thread. I'm not going to give you the mission statement, but we're here to enable kids. And how do we do that? It looks different from every kid that walks through our doors. Some kids, they need help in the areas of homework. Some kids need a stable, positive role model each day that they can come in and visit with every day after school. So each day that the Boys and Girls Clubs opens their door, they're reaching the needs of every kid that comes to us differently. Basically, when the schools are out, the clubs are in. So when the school district closes up shop, whether it's after school or during the summer, we're here to fill that gap and to keep kids safe and in a positive place when their parents are at work or they just can't be at home. One of the things that we all know, is the upward trend of single-parent households and households where both parents are working. I would guess to say that the households where both parents working is huge right now. I don't know the statistics on that, but the majority of the kids that we see, either both parents are working or they come from single-parent households. So who's there after school for those kids when they get out? For me, I didn't have a Boys and Girls Club, and I can tell you that both of my parents had to work in order for us to survive. Luckily, I had an older brother, but that caused all sorts of other problems, as you can imagine. But we're here basically, to either get kids back on track or to keep them on track. One of the best things that we can do is prevent a kid from going down the wrong path. If we can get a kid at a critical age or a step in their life where they make the decision to stay on track rather than falling off, it's much easier for us to keep them on track rather than trying to rehabilitate them or get them back on track. So, we operate under a few time-tested principles and philosophies. We have a youth development strategy. So each day that the Boys and Girls Club is open and kids come in, we try to instill a sense of the following. That's belongingness, usefulness, influence, and competence. They may not receive that anywhere else in life. They may struggle at school, they may have hardships at home. It's our job to lift kids up and make them feel confident of themselves. We operate under 5 core programming areas. The first is education and career development, health and life skills, sports, fitness, and recreation, the arts, and each day that a kid comes to the club, they have the opportunity to participate in those programs. So in the year 2000, we opened up shop here in Nampa. We were serving about 35 kids a day. In 2006, we were able to expand and essentially double the size of our facility. We went from serving 35 kids a day in 2000 to where we're at now is about 230 kids each day after school. So as you can imagine, we're a very busy facility, but one of the challenges that we have is even though we are reaching 230 kids each day after school, there's still kids out there that aren't able to benefit from our services. So, Boys and Girls Club of Nampa is at a transitional stage of how do we access relationships, access facilities, potentially access capital campaigns to reach more kids, and to make sure that each kid that needs us the most has that opportunity to participate in the Boys and Girls Club. I know that if I would have had a Boys and Girls Club when I was growing up, it may not have changed my life, but it may have kept me on track a couple times. And that's ultimately what we want to do. So in Nampa, we're still a fairly small nonprofit, and in the grand scheme of Boys and Girls Clubs, a lot of people have the assumption that we are all part of the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And while we are all Boys and Girls Clubs, we're not. We're essentially just chartered through the national organization. It's up to each community to support and to develop the success of their own respective Boys and Girls Club. So Boys and Girls Club of Ada County is its own organization. Boys and Girls Club of Nampa is their own organization, and so on. So some of the issues that we, in commonality that we've all talked about is always the money issue. And Nora just brought up, that there are 7,000 nonprofits in the state of Idaho, and they're all trying to access the same funds and resources. So you can imagine there is a little bit of competition there. And being a smaller nonprofit, and Boys and Girls Club of Nampa, we have the not necessarily the luxury, but we do have the national organization that does create brand awareness, brand recognition. So it is easier for us to break into some of these markets. Some of the other smaller nonprofits that may not have the name recognition or the brand recognition, or Denzel Washington getting on a commercial and advocating for the Boys and Girls Club and how the club's changed his life, I can imagine that it's fairly tough for a smaller nonprofit to access some of the funds just based on that. But other than that, I'm pretty sure that there are none of my board members here in the audience. But one of the not necessarily problems, but challenging situations that nonprofits can experience is managing boards. Board members are usually very passionate and highly successful individuals. So an example of just kind of my career development. About 6 months ago, I'm fairly new to the executive director position. I had one boss. 6 months ago, I transitioned into the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club of Nampa, and now I have 14 bosses because I have 14 board members. And they are not all hovering with their thumb on top of me, but those are some of the things that when you reach a certain level, you have to be aware of in managing boards, and then also keeping highly successful board members engaged and contributing to your organization, because usually the highest performing board members are high performing individuals in their business and their lives, so they're very busy. It's hard to manage demanding time of individuals, and then also protecting the relationship that they have with the club, and not overextending an individual or asking them too much of their time. So those are just a couple of things that I've seen from my years working in nonprofits. But I guess I don't know how I'm going to wrap this up, but that's it.
All right, thank you. What I'd like to do right now is open it up, and I'll be running around here for individuals who have questions of the panelists. You can either just open it up to anyone to answer or ask a specific panelist. Does anyone have questions?
First, I'd like to thank all of you for participating in this. This is a great opportunity for students as well as the professors and the staff at NNU. And one way that you connect with our audience and we connect with you in the nonprofit sector is through volunteerism. Because we've got people who are volunteers, were volunteers, and certainly will be volunteers someday. And I'm just wondering what kinds of issues you as administrators of nonprofits encounter these days with volunteers in terms of the recruiting or the training or the managing of volunteers. What are some of the newer trends in terms of working with volunteers? Maybe you could just talk about volunteerism in nonprofits, please.
Great question. So first of all, let me tell you, and I know Reverend Bill's going to dive into the weeds. He's ready to go. So let me tell you that if you're interested in volunteer opportunities, you can find the Treasure Valley's Volunteer Hub on our website at unitedwaytv.org. Click on anything that says action or volunteer. It's kind of like Match.com. Not that any of you know about Match.com, but if you did, or eHarmony. Same basic idea. You can match up your interest, your specific heart with opportunities. So that's a really, really good question. And I want to tell you just a really quick story about a volunteer opportunity that could have been rock star and just missed. It happened with the Girl Scouts not too awfully long ago. They had an opportunity for a large corporation who wanted to bring 50 people together as a large team building opportunity to volunteer on a specific project, and the Girl Scouts said, hey, we have a building that really needs some work, this would be great, 50 people could easily knock this out in a day, no problem. And so Girl Scouts literally dropped everything they were doing and went into prep mode, acquiring paint and tools and water and cookies and all of the things that you need for a great volunteer experience. And the volunteer organization, the company, kind of went into a cone of silence the last couple of days. You know, emails started to slow down, phone calls weren't being returned, and the Friday, this was going to happen on Saturday, the Friday before, the woman who had initially contacted Girl Scouts said, well, you know, I told you we were going to have 50, well, it turns out we're only going to have 20. Okay, well, that's all right, we'll manage that. So the next morning came and 6 people showed up. It cost the and 3 of them had to leave to take their kids to a soccer game within about an hour. So the organization literally came to a screeching halt, stopped their mission work in order to help this group of volunteers have a great experience. So here's what happened. The volunteers really weren't bought in the first place. The organization missed a big opportunity to share their mission with a lot of great folks and to get some valuable work done. So it was a miss for everybody. So here's a couple things that we strongly recommend. If you're going to be ready to volunteer, be really ready to volunteer. Think hard about your time and your talent and what you are able to give. There are organizations represented in this room, like the Mentoring Network, who desperately need people who can just give a couple hours a week, but every week. There's organizations like Boys and Girls Club who need people to come in for special projects with certain skills or to be there on an ongoing basis. So think first about what you have to give and what your capacity is, and be really ready to think of it like a job, but a job that will fill your heart with joy. And then interview the organization just like you were going for a job. What are your expectations? What will success look like? How will I know if I'm making a difference? How often do I need to be here? How do I need to dress? What skills do I need to bring to the table? Think of it like a job that is beyond your wildest expectations for awesome.
I'll jump on that one too. We have hundreds of volunteers a year who serve routinely at the rescue mission, and then the holidays come, Thanksgiving and Christmas particularly, where we have hundreds more who come just on those occasions. And we need all of that help, so it's a good thing on the one hand. On the other hand, I think you need to really, as Nora said, research the organization before you show up and know exactly what you're getting into. And when, in our case, you go to our website, boiserm.org, and there's a volunteer button you can click and learn a lot about volunteering and even apply to volunteer at the rescue mission there. But for example, we serve guys who are convicted felons. We serve women that are convicted felons. And we have people with us who are tattooed from head to toe and a little rough on how they present themselves and how they communicate with people. So you need to know that when you're coming in, that you're not coming to NNU's campus here to do a volunteer activity. You're going to the rescue mission. And I'm not saying that to stereotype people or put stigma on people. I just want you to know and understand that that's a very important issue to deal with. You have to make sure that you know before you show up at our place that if you're a female and you're volunteering serving meals at the men's shelter, you're probably going to have a couple of fellas looking at you a little differently than you would at NNU, if you know what I mean. So, be tuned in, be understanding what you're supposed to do and not do. We have dress codes for that kind of reason. We advise people how to dress before they come and volunteer at the rescue mission. Lock your purse in your car and leave it there. Just last weekend, a lady volunteered at one of our facilities and someone went in her purse and took her cell phone. Terrible thing. Talk about a bummer volunteer experience. There's one. So, pay attention to what the agency says to you about your volunteer experience and be prepared for that. Dress appropriately, come in with that good attitude of I want to serve. And the other thing is, in our case, never get too personal with the people that you're volunteering for, our guests and program members at the rescue mission. keep a good professional relationship at all times between yourself and those people. And one of the things that drives me crazy is that someone will come and volunteer and serve for an hour and 45 minutes and then send me a 5-page email telling me how to run the rescue mission because they talked with the homeless guy who told them how we abused him or her, you know? So
Wow.
keep that good professional relationship in place and do what you came to do. You'll have a good time and you'll see all kinds of miracles all around you every time you show up at the rescue mission.
We have over 200 volunteers that come to Hands of Hope, and one problem that we have is because we deal with medical supplies, we really like to have doctors and nurses come, of course, but a lot of people come who have no medical experience at all, and that's fine. But if I spend a lot of time teaching them how to work with the medical supplies and pack the boxes, and then they're only there maybe 2 or 3 times and then they don't come back, then we've wasted a lot of time. And so, like Reverend Bill said, check it out. Make sure that this is something that you really want to do, that this is the niche that for you. And then another thing that you can do is we do have internships available if you would like to come and be an intern and help us out in the office or doing different things I could think of. Maybe help me write a grant or something like that. We would be happy to have you come and do that as a student.
I'll just put my 2 cents on volunteers. Volunteers for the Boys and Girls Club can either be the most difficult people to work with or the greatest resource that you have. One of the things that my board is always kind of, asking me is, why don't we have more volunteers to run our programs? Why don't we have more volunteers? Well, some of the things that, we've all kind of spoke to is how much do you invest into a volunteer that might not stick with you for the long haul. Volunteers are great and they provide a great resource for nonprofits across the board, but they're almost different than a staff member because they're not receiving a paycheck. And from a supervisor standpoint, you can't lean on them per se, as much as a staff member. If a volunteer chooses to call in and say that they're not going to show up that day, for whatever reason it is, you almost kind of have to accept it because they are donating their time, and that's a valuable resource for everybody. So, I guess to answer your question on the Boys and Girls Club standpoint, we have to balance, the level of investment that we make with the volunteers on the front end and what we can see, the return on investment being. If we have a person that comes in that's kind of wishy-washy, doesn't know, we do our best to motivate them, educate them about the program on the front end so that we don't get too far into the weeds and then they just stop coming. Because what will happen is, if they come for, let's say, 6 months, we start to depend on them almost as if they were a staff. Kids expect to see them in the homework room when they come in each day after school. And then if they are just abruptly not there, it's a tough spot for everybody involved. So like I said, volunteers, can be our greatest resource, but also one of our biggest challenges. And it's just that balance on the front end on how much time you're willing to invest, how many resources you're willing to invest, and then the return on investment that you're going to get back.
I just want to say that I agree with Reverend Roscoe. The Treasure Valley is one of the most generous places my husband and I have ever lived in. We've lived in 5 different states during the course of our life, and I'm always amazed at the people that come out to help other people in need. I have kind of a 2-question for the panel. I was a treasurer for a nonprofit, which was basically just a small choral group. But because we tried to earn money to go on trips and then volunteer to sing at rest homes and hospitals, we were informed by the national organization and the state of Idaho we had to file taxes. That group has since been absolved into another group. Now I'm looking at another place to volunteer, which is a much more ambitious organization, which is still trying to get on its feet and has a lot of dedicated people trying to get it started. And because of a $5 million insurance policy they have to get, it will now be nonprofit instead of a business. Can any of you address the insurance and IRS for a nonprofit in Idaho?
Okay, I'm going to put on an old hat here, Dale. My early nonprofit career, the first 20 years was at the Better Business Bureau, which is a nonprofit organization. Your current executive director, Dale Dixon, is sitting here. So help me if I go astray. I'm not sure I can answer the insurance question specifically because it would depend on the insurance organization. Probably, I'm going to make a really big guess here. Probably the insurance company wants an entity to insure. And it either needs to be a business entity or it needs to be some other kind of entity. And it is suggesting, based on the work that your organization is doing, that you become a nonprofit organization. In tax code, there's all kinds of nonprofit organizations. The one that most people think of as charity is called a 501c3. That's just a whole bunch of numbers that make sense to the IRS and nobody else. Because we all know that they make stuff up just to confuse us. There's a very specific process that an organization or a group of people who share a mission go through to apply for recognition with the IRS to become whatever kind of nonprofit they are going to become. And there's all kinds of resources available to you on the web, in person. So if your organization needs assistance going through that process, it's not complicated, it's not fast, but it's not complicated. Now, having said that, I know there's somebody in the audience right at the moment thinking, well, I'm really nonprofit. I'm going to college. I don't have 2 nickels. I am seriously nonprofit. How do I get one of these? Well, there are some very specific legal things that you have to meet, some very specific legal benchmarks before the IRS will grant you that status. So my suggestion would be that you visit with, either go to the web and see what kind of process you need to go through, if you haven't already, or visit the Idaho Nonprofit Center. They have a whole buffet of resources on how to start a nonprofit in Idaho.
And I'll follow that by saying the Secretary of State has a website too that is very easy to use, and you can find out information about the various statuses, different codes for nonprofits. But speaking to insurance, I remember 24 years ago when I started at the Rescue Mission in California. I don't remember what the mission paid for insurance, but it was a little tiny amount of money. We had the typical fire insurance and accident insurance on the vehicles and things like that. But today we have insurance that I never heard of until 10 years ago. Officers and directors insurance, for example. When you have a board of directors, you have to, well, you don't have to, but I highly recommend you insure your board members, because should something bad happen at the rescue mission, my board members may be liable personally for whatever bad thing happened. So officers and directors insurance, and we have a $1 million policy for just about everything, and then there's an umbrella policy of $5 million over that, just so that if the worst case scenario happens, we're going to be covered and not have to go out of business. And so it's really expensive. I don't have the number in my head how much we pay annually for insurance. And the other thing is there are not a lot of insurers who will take on an agency like a rescue mission. So fortunately, we belong to an association of rescue missions that's national, and we have an insurance carrier who insures probably half the organizations, maybe 150 rescue missions across the country. And so they know what we do, and they decided to take that risk and insure us. And frankly, we've not had many claims. In my 24 years, we've had very few things happen that really made us say, oh boy, I'm glad I had insurance. And that's good news and bad news. The good news is, oh boy, we didn't have many claims. The bad news is we're paying all that money every year, and it just, it's money that could go to food and light bills and other things too. So insurance is very important, and I recommend you talk to a good broker and talk to a broker. My recommendation would be, as we did, talk to a broker who deals with a lot of agencies, so that it's not just one company and this is what we do and take it or leave it. But our broker, for example, every couple of years revisits all of our insurance, and we meet every year at least once to review things, but every couple of years he shoots all of our stuff out to other agencies to see if there's a better deal for the rescue mission in terms of cost. And so far in my 12 years here in the Valley, we've not found anyone better than the agency we use.
We've heard from most everyone. My question would be for the Albertson group here is what could the individuals in this room do to help your organization?
Part of what we're dealing with in Idaho really is a lack of engagement, especially at the community and grassroots level in education. Most people look at teachers as in the same status as doctors and lawyers, and so there are very few people who are willing to question how a child is being educated. And so it is imperative that people begin to question whether or not that school is really doing what it is that they're supposed to be doing, which is helping a child learn and thrive. So part of what we've been trying to do is get people to say, let's not fail our kids. So some of you may or may not have seen our campaigns of Don't Fail Idaho. It is all about, it's not about putting a guilt trip on teachers. Let me just make that very clear. It is not about guilting teachers into doing X, Y, or Z. It is all about making sure each child in our public education system gets what they need in order to fully realize their capabilities as a human being. And that is not what's happening, for the most part, in most of our schools. It's happening in pockets. There are brilliant pockets in our state, but for the most, okay, let me just ask you this question, and you may be the exception, so I'm just going to factor that in right now. How many of you had a teacher that really was not supportive of you in your K-12 adventure through school? How many of you did not have a teacher, or had a teacher that did not encourage you, or that really helped you to disengage from your learning process? Okay, most people have teachers, and they can think of them. People always say, well, who was your best teacher? And everybody can, well, when asked that question, I never had a best teacher. Now, don't feel sorry for me, because I'm all right, but, but I could never think of a teacher that really supported me in a way that was like, you are gonna be something. You got something special. You're gonna be, you just watch out for this one. Never had that. How many of you had that? That teacher that was like, you are gonna go far. How many? Raise your hand. So you are the exception. But there are a lot of children in our public education system that have no fans, that have no one at their back. And so that's what we really are trying to do. Get into a school. Go volunteer in a local school here. Simple as that. Go find a place where you can go and come alongside a teacher or an administrator and volunteer.
So I was just wondering how you guys manage to stay sustainable. I know I'm learning a lot about fundraising and PR and gaining money, but how do you guys maintain that over a long period of time? I'm just looking at over a semester trying to do fundraising campaigns, and that in and of itself is hard enough. So I was just wondering how you guys deal with that on a long-term basis.
I'm going to beat them to the punch because here is what donors. This is a donor angle, okay? So I'm going to be very honest, very open. Present company excluded, okay? Most funders are looking for organizations that have great leaders. If you don't have an organization with a great leader, you will not be sustainable. Just saying. You're not going to be sustainable if you do not have a leader that is capable of putting the infrastructure together, making sure that that organization has results, knows how to report on those results, knows how to bring the right kind of board members in and train them. So nonprofits rise and fall on their leaders from a donor's perspective.
I'm the exception to that rule, I suppose. More directly try to answer the question. We have fundraising going on 24/7, 365. You know, we're always thinking, and when I say we, I have a chief development officer, I have a vice president of development, I have, then they have 5 staff who work with them and directly report to them on fundraising. Now, it's taken 12 years to get there. When I came to the Boise Rescue Mission in '02, it was my wife and myself, basically, as our fundraising team. And then we brought on one of the persons the gal who is now our chief development officer, started working for us there. She was a missionary. So she's really bright, really energetic, really motivated, and an extremely godly person who prays without ceasing. And that's the other key to fundraising for us, is pray without ceasing. But we have these people committed to the task every day. And so everything that we do, and I don't want to sound like a mercenary because we're not mercenary, but everything that we do, we think about the potential there, not necessarily to get money, but to make friends and build relationships with people who might then later on give money to the rescue mission. So it's an ongoing process, and every holiday season, and we're there. How many of you have gotten our mail from the Boise Rescue Mission? Not enough. Oh my, well, you're students, most of you. No, that's right. We're not giving you any money, students. But we send out direct mail. Direct mail has been our lifeblood for the last 20 years or so, and we send out a lot of mail. We have about 16,000 names on a mailing list, and we mail to most of those people at least 3 or 4 times a year, and some of them get a letter every single month. We've established a donor club, the Bread for Life Club, where we promoted that idea to people that they could help us to have some kind of expectation of income so we could plan ahead better. And we have a donor club that people can join and make a pledge of a monthly gift. We do all kinds of multimedia advertising. How many of you have seen an ad for the rescue mission? Still not enough. Wait till I get back to the office. Multimedia approach, you know, especially in the holidays, starting now and going through the end of the year, we're expecting that we're going to raise between 45 and 60% of our total annual income. And that's a lot of money. So we're going to be using the internet, we're going to be using all the social media tools, and that's why I have a development team who's really young and bright, because I have a smartphone, but it's way smarter than me, so I need help. But we're going to have billboards on the freeway and in town, you'll see them, and this direct mail campaign. In the holiday season, we have the donor acquisition process where we go out to find new donors, and it's like just a cold call. It's a piece of mail you get. We hope you open it, and if you do, we hope you'll read it, and if you do, we hope you'll send us a gift. But it's a really, really complex process, and it's not cheap. Our development budget is a pretty significant part of our annual budget, going back to overhead. We have to raise money to serve the people that we serve. 1,000 meals a day and 350, 400 people a night in bed right now, that takes a lot of money. 4 rescue mission facilities takes a lot of staff. And so we have to raise a lot of money, and it's a very complex issue, but you get smart people, much smarter than me, and put them in those positions of responsibility, and send them to seminars, send them to training, read every piece of paper you can get on the topic, join organizations like the Association of Fundraising Professionals and the Idaho nonprofit organizations, join those groups and learn what other people are doing. Go to our annual rescue mission conferences that happen all across the country once a year, and see what other missions are doing that are successful, and you get ideas, and you have the sleep in, or you have various events going on where people come and pay money to participate as volunteers in some project. You do everything you can, and you pray without ceasing. And at the end of the day, we're blessed. It's the most generous community on the face of the earth, and we're blessed to be here.
So do you see what I say about great leadership? They have been able to stand the test of time because you've got somebody at the helm who is looking at every rock, turning every rock over, and making sure that they are going down every path possible. So they're doing well because they've got somebody like Bill at the helm who is constantly thinking about this stuff and is smart enough to have development directors that's a great field to go into. So if you don't know about development director positions, check it out, especially if you're a good people person and you write well. Marketing people, this is a great field to go into for marketing people, okay?
I would just like to add that communicating with your donors is crucial, and letting them know this is what your dollar bought. This is the mask that the little child with pneumonia in Africa who had no oxygen mask was provided because of your donation, and show pictures of those things, because you know, I write several grants every year, and unfortunately most of the grant-making organizations are interested in helping people in this country. It's difficult to get people interested in international donations. And so for those, the international part is a huge part of our ministry. And so for that part, we just depend on local people who know about what we're doing, who have an interest in helping people, and we're mostly funded by the individual donors. And so communicating to them, making them feel that they're a part of, they're not just, you know, giving money, but they're actually making things happen is very important.
So both Blossom and Brad spoke briefly about board members, but I'd like to dive into this idea a little deeper, especially for this group. So for all of you, what is the approximate age of your youngest board member? What's the most valuable thing that a current board member is bringing to the table? And what leadership skill do you look for in a potential board member?
Just start at one end and go.
Okay. Well, so your first question, the youngest board member that I have currently, I believe is 36 years old. The remainder of the board is probably over 50. But what I can tell you is one of our oldest board members, I don't know if I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Seth's Health and Snow, is by and far our most productive board member that we have, and brings the most to the table each day. Her enthusiasm, she runs circles around the rest of the board members and the even the younger board members. So the age there isn't necessarily what we focus on. It's the level of energy and the level of how much are they willing to commit. But Sess is a rare exception to the rule. I mean, she helped us build the Boys and Girls Club in 2000, so she's deeply passionate about it and heavily invested. But on top of that, she's just a go-getter. She gets things done. It was kind of funny. We, about 6 months ago, we all gathered up for this half-day retreat, and we were going to build our strategic plan. And we had all these things up on this whiteboard, and everybody was giving their 2 cents. And Sess kind of stands up and she goes, "How about my strategic plan?" And we go, "Okay." And she goes, "My strategic plan is I get things done." And it was kind of, it's at the end of the day, we can all talk about how we want to change this or how we can improve upon this in our organization. But, it's the people that get things done. And Blossom, she talked about, exceptional leadership in nonprofit organizations. You also have to have exceptional leadership, from your board of directors as well. There's not necessarily a certain quality that I look for, but we try to find the people that are motivated, that will actually get the things done at the end of the day. It's hard to find those people sometimes, but once you do, if you can foster that relationship and continue to make them happy and feel like they are part of a winning team, the longer you're going to be able to keep them around. But there are tools out there. You can do gap analysis, on your board of directors. Where are we lacking representation? Do we have a member on the board that's also part of the school district? Do we have somebody that can help us out with car dealerships? You can go through all of that stuff and try to identify where you have those gaps, but ultimately you just need to find people that can get things done and not just talk about how they'd like to change things. But again, that's hard to find sometimes. If somebody figures out that formula, I'll pay right now to learn that. So
That's a great question, Dale. So you had me thinking there. Our youngest board member is 30-ish. I think she just celebrated her 30th birthday. I'm pretty sure she just celebrated her 30th birthday. And that's the first time we have cracked the low 30s. As I looked back over the history of our organization, it tended to be older, much older, tended to be predominantly male, and it tended to be very Boise-centric, and yet we serve all of the greater Treasure Valley area. So one of the things that we are very interested in is diversity in every way that you can describe that: gender, cultural, geographic, professional. We want to make sure that we are finding and bringing to the table the most highly talented and passionate people who are interested in our space, which is human services, health, education, and financial independence. And then that we have a system in place to teach them to be the very best ambassadors of that passion they possibly can. We use a word that, I don't know, maybe we made it up, I don't know, passionistas. We're looking for passionistas. So if I didn't make that up, I'm taking credit for it anyway. To add on what Brad says, I think, I hope that each and every one of you will look for an opportunity to find leadership somewhere in your community. And a board of directors is a great way to do it. There are many organizations, and ours is one, who really is trying to move the age down on volunteer leadership. But it comes with some responsibility and some accountability. And I think it's really incumbent on the organization to provide structure so that the board member, the volunteer leader, can be really, really successful. But we really look for passion first and foremost, and then we own the opportunity to teach that person to be as passionate as they possibly can and turn them into passionistas.
Because we're a family foundation, it's primarily family members. We have 9 board members. The youngest is 24, 25-ish. Tony Scott, not Tony, Tony is a family member, but he's not on the board right now. Brian Scott, he's a NASCAR driver, and he normally joins us remotely. Here's a lesson that, and I'm just going to speak very frankly, but rich people operate differently, and they raise their children to take on responsibility at a very young age. So I anticipate that Jamie's son will be joining the board in the next few years. And the reason for that is because they bring a very different view, and it's a great training ground. So, so our board is a little different, but we are always constantly pushing on our grantees and their boards, because what we typically find is the white male thing over the age of 50, and that is not representative. Okay, I heard you. It is not representative of the demographic that is typically being served. So you have to bring in younger voices, you have to bring in more diverse voices at the board level, but you also have to have expertise. If you don't have people who know the financial end of things and the legal end of things and the HR end of things, it tends to have gaps. So board membership is extremely important, but as important as a composition is their training. They've got to be trained, or else they just kind of wander around looking at the financials and going, what is this saying?
Our average board member,
Yeah, that was
our average board member is going to be 50-something, and we have three women on our board. In fact, our current chairwoman of the board is a woman. And the fact is, I think that we see older people more inclined to do this because the kids are gone off to college, they don't have all those responsibilities with children and things like that. They have more time that they can dedicate to the cause. And we've never had a board member, in my experience, I don't think we've ever had a board member under 40 years old on any mission I ever served at. And so good news, bad news maybe, but that's just the reality of it. Of course, they have to be Christians in our case. Our board members are all Christians, and we like to look out so that we don't, in fact, in our bylaws, it is written that we won't have more than 2 board members from any one denomination, so that we have good representation from the church, because the church is really our primary place of support. I think the business acumen is something that I'm always interested in. What do they know about the business? We have an insurance broker on our board, and we don't buy our insurance through their agency, but there's good advice all the time, good counsel there for us as we consider things of insurance. We do have a car dealer, waiting for that big gift to come through one of these days. We've got a realtor, and things like that. So people with a lot of different business experience is really important, because that way when we have an opportunity to buy a building over there on Corporate Way in Nampa, we can have people that we can pull together right now and talk about the possibility, the reality, the pitfalls. And meanwhile, at the same time, we had another board member who was fairly wealthy and well-connected in the community, so that once we made the decision to buy that building, she got on the phone and started calling people, and the next thing you know, we had a $250,000 gift to buy the building. So business acumen, relationships in the community, people that know people on the Albertsons Foundation, that's a good thing. And by the way, Albertsons Foundation is one of the most generous foundations in this valley, and we sure appreciate all that they've done for the rescue mission.
Our youngest board member is 45 years old. Quite a few of our board members are retired, and I see that as a good thing because they have a lot more time to give, and many of them are still quite healthy and quite able to be very great board members and giving of their time and their energy and their finances. So. One thing that we are looking for right now is, like they say, you need someone on the board that represents all different talents and backgrounds. And we right now are heavy on former education professors and really light on people with business backgrounds and also development backgrounds. And so if you know of anybody who would like to be on a nonprofit board, we are looking for board members, and especially with development background, that we really need right now.
I should have added that board members who are around 50 are very young people.
All right, last call for any questions.
I was wondering if you could speak to, I've heard a lot of talking about business acumen and the importance of that, and certainly speaking to business students here is critical. I think you're in an appropriate place here at NNU to share this information, so thank you for that. If you could speak to the different channels that students might be thinking about going, social work, nonprofit, do I go that way? Do I go down the business road? And kind of this inner turmoil that might produce in them. If you could speak to that, what is important as you guys approach it to look for in students?
There's a generation right now of college students that have grown up with service learning. Some of our Ivy League schools, it is embedded in their students that they're here for a reason and that it is about changing their world. So whatever these students are going into, they have this compass of, I am a world changer, and no matter where I'm at, I will change the world. Well, that is really what we need all of our young people to know and to be really embedding. And then regardless of where they're at, whether it is the nonprofit, the business, the philanthropic, whatever it is, that they go in with that value as they're going to add value wherever they go. For a place like us, you know, we've got lots, there's lots of different types of people in our organization and in the world of philanthropy. And it's really a cool place to work. I mean, seriously, how many of you get to give away millions of dollars? You know, who knew? And like I said, it is hard. It is hard to give that amount of money away in a responsible steward, as a responsible steward. But we need smart people. Young people, let me just tell you, if you are an Idahoan or if you love Idaho, stay here when you get your degree. Please stay here when you get your degree, because we so desperately need bright, competent, caring young people to take over. Our leadership in our state is very old. Older than me. And they are going to be out the doors very soon, within the next 5 years. Where is our talent? That's you guys. You guys have to stay here and start running for office and start getting into our nonprofits and just start making a difference, because you are, I mean, to show up here today, you know you're a world changer.
So I want to go back to Debbie's list at the very beginning. I heard human resource, I heard accounting, I heard IT, I heard grant writing, technical writing. So just on my team, and I don't have a horribly big staff, but I have an accountant, I have a CPA, I have an IT specialist, I have a data analytics specialist, I have an MBA who's working in fund development, grant writing, communications. I'm a person with a master's in communications. You don't necessarily have to have a master's degree, but virtually any specialty within the business umbrella, public relations, just about anything plugs into the nonprofit world. Because I think one of the themes you heard here is, just because it says nonprofit in front of the name of the organization, it has to run like a business. It absolutely has to. Somebody has to be accountable to the book. Somebody has to be making highly skilled decisions. Somebody has to be able to read contracts. Many nonprofits, if they don't have lawyers on staff, they have legal counsel very close to them. So virtually anything under the business umbrella translates into the nonprofit world. Then as you think about maybe specialty, you're passionate about the environment, the arts, kids. If you have a specialty, whether it's in the medical field, whether it's in social work, whether it's in environmental studies, there's a slice of the nonprofit sector that you can take those skills and take even a further step deep into a particular segment. So whatever you all are interested in, if you're getting an accounting degree, if you're getting a general business degree, if you're getting a degree in a particular language with additional emphasis elsewhere, there is a place in nonprofit for you.
All right. Well, join me in thanking the panelists for their sharing this information, wealth of information, and also their candidness. I'd like to just first of all show our appreciation for that. Someone can help up here.
I can do that.
All right.
You can check mine. All my coverage.
I want to take this opportunity to thank our Business Fall Enrichment Series sponsors, Rathbone Warwick Investment Management, the Bank of Cascades, along with our media sponsors, Capital One Advertising, for their continued support and generosity. Also, at the end of the session, I would encourage you to visit the booths in the back of our invited guests representing the Autism Society of Treasure Valley, the Boys and Girls Club, the Boise Rescue Mission, and the Hands of Hope. Also, could I have Dr. Self stand just for a second? Dr. Self will be our keynote speaker for tonight, and he also has a booth in the back for selling his books. And if you come back tonight at 7 o'clock in this room, He will be talking about the topic of new strategies for current realities leading nonprofit organizations. So at this time, I'd also like to give Dr. Robinson and Jolene. Dr. Robinson is the Director of the Office of Leadership and Leadership Studies and Servant Leadership, and Jolene Tagerstrand is the Director of Student Ministry to present NNU's initiative in service learning.
Oh, good, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. We have something that we think is pretty exciting, and we have handouts for not for everybody. I'm sorry, I underestimated the crowd. But if we could make sure that everybody from the community, the broader community gets one, and then if somebody who knows where the copier in this building is could make another 20 copies or so, then we could have one for everybody. NNU is participating in a new initiative called Volunteer NNU.edu. And it is an online registry that is designed to connect volunteer opportunities in the community with the NNU population. And it's all kind of an online registry, and it will allow agencies to register online, and you'll become a part of the volunteer.nnu.edu, and it will allow agencies to give mission descriptions, allow them to give agency activities, what is it your agency does, and then list volunteer opportunities. And this is all to be, it is a kind of a working site, so you can update the opportunities that are available in terms of volunteers, and then you can provide contact information, and then also include in that an informational video. Pete, if you could just hit the agency tab for me. Oh, yeah, right there.
On this Whitworth.
Right there. And you'll see, and you can scroll down, and you can see this is from an organization, university, one of our sister universities in Spokane. Each organization then has an opportunity to register, and then also include in the registration what is the kind of general area of volunteer service that you're looking for, or what your agency does. And Pete, if you'll hit on ARC of Spokane for me. And this is where each agency has its own page, and you can put, you know, your basic mission, and then what we do, and then this agency right here, it keeps going in and out of me. So this agency right here, obviously at this point in time, has no volunteer kind of opportunities, but this is where they would be listed, and then there's contact information, and you can put your own logo and all of those things there. And then what it does for NNU students and staff and faculty is that once you register on the volunteer.nnu.edu site, then you can explore all of the volunteer activities and volunteer opportunities that are available to you. You can explore them by agency, you can explore them by categories, and then make selections in terms of where you'd like to get involved and engaged. And it offers you the privilege of, through the website, of actually making an RSVP directly to the agency that says, I'd like to volunteer for this need, that is listed according to when they need you, how many days a week, what the essential activity is, so that you really don't have to go searching on your own for an agency to get involved in. You can do that search online, and then make the RSVP, and then you begin communicating with that agency directly. And then what takes place from the standpoint of faculty members, if you have in your syllabus that you want students in service learning to volunteer for a particular type of activity, then you can even go on the site and recommend this agency, this agency, this agency, or these 10 agencies. And what the students do is, when you come in, you report your volunteer activity, and then it will keep a complete record of them, and then be able to publish a record. And on the academic side of the house, faculty members can actually keep track of how much you have fulfilled in terms of your service learning requirements that are there, and faculty members as well. There's a place for you to ask for verification from the agency itself, and it's not a difficult process. And what we think this will do is allow us to make better contact, more direct communication. And when an agency puts up a new volunteer kind of opportunity, if it fits a particular category, we can communicate via email with every student who is signed up and registered on our site that says, I have interest in literacy. And so we will send an immediate email to every student who signed up that says, I have interest in literacy, to say there's a new literacy volunteer opportunity available for you there. And you can look off, if you go ahead and go back a screen. You see over on the right side of the screen the various things that are listed there. And so we are hoping, and not just with a kind of a small little hoping, we're hoping with significant optimism that this will assist students and assist agencies to connect with one another in significant ways. Each agency will need to register on the site, but the website builders tell me that this is almost like registering on Facebook. I mean, it's about that easy. And so it's not a difficult process to do, and it can be updated, and it can be, you can add kind of bells and whistles to the agency sites. What this also allows NNU to do is it allows us on our homepage of volunteer.nnu.edu to highlight agencies in our community and to also highlight volunteers, to plan special serve events through volunteer.nnu.edu. And so you have on the handout there, we have a kind of an implementation timetable. We are just at the beginning stages, but we are we've already kind of jumped in the pool, so we're wet. We're not thinking about getting involved. We're in it. And so what we're going to do is in the spring semester, and this is for students and faculty members particularly, in the spring semester we're going to do kind of a soft sell, meaning we're going to work with some selected groups and selected faculty members to get the thing going so it works well. The worst thing you can do is to get a big plan out there and have a crash. So we're going to do soft sell in the spring, and then in the fall of 2015 will be the hard sell, and our goal is to get every NNU student signed up and registered on volunteer.nnu.edu and then actively engaged in the practice of volunteering, either on your own or through a student organization to which you belong or through a class in which you're enrolled. And all of this will be done through the volunteer.nnu.edu website. I want to speak especially to the community agency people who are present here. We don't want to add to your workload, but we do want to save you time. And we spend a lot of time playing phone tag and wondering, okay, can you give me somebody? How many? Did you talk to somebody? And this will be a way in which we can eliminate the phone tag and make more direct contact, and we hope get better volunteers and more quality volunteer time to the agencies. The orientation to the website is an online short orientation, and the process is very simple. And so we're going to target kind of December, January for getting organizations signed up. But then we want to keep adding and adding and adding so that the opportunities for our students and the opportunities for service agencies in the Treasure Valley will be able to make a better connection and turn us into indispensable partners, I guess is the best way to state that. And so thank you, both to you, Dr. Crabb, and to you, Dr. Weber, for the opportunity to share this idea this afternoon.
Thank you. I'll have my AMA officers to go back, and we're going to collect the student cards, and I hope to see everyone back tonight at this room at 7 p.m. to listen to our Dr. Self on new realities and learning about leadership.